I joined Bath and I was as a 19-year-old lad, and then within a year I was playing for England as a 20-year-old.
Wow.
So it was kind of the youngest player in my position to ever play for England at 20. So I was putting up a massive mask, I think, all the time to go out there. And I think as rugby players we do, we put on masks to go out there to be big and strong and physical. And you know, you can be suffering in silence behind that. I'd gone from being a professional rugby player for 17 years, having everything laid out, having an identity, wearing a badge, to suddenly moving a young family to Essex, to then commute into London. And I say that to people nearly every day, and they never take your mobility for granted, because he hasn't got that now, right? He hasn't got that at all, and he'd do anything to be able to do that.
Welcome back to the Toughest Finish Line podcast. I'm Jen Doan, and today's guest is former England Rugby Union player Andy Long. After playing professional rugby with teams such as Bath, Newcastle Falcons and Northampton Saints, as well as earning 2 England caps alongside some of the biggest names in the game, Andy has taken his mindset far beyond rugby. He's now a performance coach helping people build resilience, improve well-being and unlock peak performance, all whilst raising awareness for motor neurone disease through his good friend Alex Gibson's charity, Challenging MND. Andy has completed some huge events through this, including recently completing the brutal 270-kilometre Marathon des Sables across the Sahara Desert in temperatures reaching over 40 degrees. We talk all things rugby, coping with coming out of the spotlight and into the corporate world, as well as training for such big events. So welcome to the podcast, Andy Long. Andy, thank you so much for being here today. And a huge congratulations on a very recent toughest finish line of the Marathon des Sables. How are you doing after not getting back too long ago?
Yeah, well, thank you very much for having me on, Jen. It's lovely to meet you. Yeah, I'm okay, actually. Yeah, I am. I'm back running again, and another race coming around the corner. So, yeah, no, it was a brilliant experience. You know, I think when you prepare for something and you plan for something for so long, and you are going into the unknown, but you are trying to tick as many boxes of things that you can control, I suppose. But there's always few things that you can't, and you've got to go into it with like eyes wide open. So yeah, absolutely loved it. But you always get the post event blues, don't you?
Yeah.
So I've certainly gone through those, and so you're straight online and booking a next race. So so it was brilliant. I met some amazing people, all running and for so many different purposes, and yeah, it was really uplifting. So no, amazing. Thank you.
Amazing job. And we will talk a lot more about Marathon des Sables a bit later on. But I wanted to go right back to the beginning, basically, and start off with people who don't know your story. How did you first get into rugby?
So I got into rugby at the age of 5. I was from Bournemouth, and my mum and dad, mini rugby was kind of probably taking off in the sort of early, sort of mid 80s, late 80s. So yeah, I got taken down with my brother down to the Bournemouth Rugby Club. I think they loved it on a Sunday because they could meet other mums and dads, and the kids would run around and they could have a drink and meet loads of different friends. And it was kind of a Sunday morning would end up going to Sunday afternoon, and it was a great community feel. So yeah, I started playing when I was 5. I loved it, just absolutely loved it. I loved all sport. It was cricket, rugby, whatever it would be. I loved it. And yeah, it was just something that I loved about, pushing yourself. There was also the contact element of it, and the team aspect of it as well. It just ticked every box for me in terms of enjoyment of fun.
Yeah, definitely that social side, but also that sport and adrenaline going. And so was there a point that you realised that rugby could become a professional career?
Yeah, well, I guess it did. Yeah, I was kind of going between rugby and cricket up until I was
Right.
probably about 16, 17. And I was battling that. I had a big setback in my life when I was 10. My father passed away when I was 10. So I lost a kind of a bit of a role model there. And I think over those next sort of, number of years, I was kind of still working all that out. And that's where sport and rugby became an amazing place for me. And the actual community I look back on it now and I realised I probably was in the middle of it, so I didn't realise what was going on. But as a 10-year-old boy, you that rugby club put their arms around me and helped me navigate. I think that with my family and because you didn't really have the support systems in the late 80s, I don't think, especially for kids my age. We didn't have that, right? You were just back out
Yeah.
there. So sport was a great vehicle. So I threw myself into that, and rugby and cricket were equally battling out against each other for which way I was going to go. And it got to the point where rugby turned professional in 96 and 95, 96. And I was lucky enough to play for England schools at rugby at 18 group. And it kind of was that point where I've got to make a bit of a decision. Do I go to university? Do I start playing rugby? Do I go cricket? And, the dawn of professionalism and rugby was kind of, Bath Rugby came along and they offered me a tiny contract to go and be a professional rugby player for whatever that meant. I think everyone was still trying to work out what professional rugby were. We were a bit guinea pigs in this sort of first year of professional rugby. And that was it really. So I suppose towards like 16, 15, 16, 17, I was always around county squads, regional squads. And then also you have to go through trials. So there was always pressure. There was always trying to perform. And I think that was just being ingrained in me really. And I think that's where you get the kind of competitiveness as well. So being a competitor. And that, I guess, so it's probably those areas there, probably 15 to 17, where I really thought, okay, but then rugby wasn't professional, so I didn't know what it meant. It literally went like that, and I realized, well, you can go and be a professional rugby player, and I didn't even know what that meant anyway either. So it was just like I was just literally following my instincts, and my mum, supported me and just said like, whatever you want to do. I didn't have parents that would say you must do that, or have you thought about your education? They didn't worry. That was not it. I made every single decision for myself, and I just sort of threw myself into it really.
Wow. And it is having that support from family that does help you through, but it's great that you made that decision yourself and you went, yeah, this is what I want to do and where I want to go. And do you remember the feeling of pulling an England shirt on and stepping out playing for England that first time? How did that feel?
Yeah. So the journey was quite quick, right? So I joined Bath and I was as a 19-year-old lad, and then within a year I was playing for England as a 20-year-old.
Wow.
So it was kind of the youngest player in my position to ever play for England at 20. So um, yeah, look, it was amazing. I'd only played a handful of games for Bath. My career had literally been moving so fast, and it was all on an upward trajectory. Everything that was put in my way, I was dealing with okay, and I was learning and had a couple of injuries, but everything else was going like that. And just came on the radar with England and was part of the squads and things. And never really thought, oh, wow, you're going to get capped for England. But as a little schoolboy, I dreamt of playing for England. My dad, before he passed away, he took me to Twickenham. We didn't have tickets. We just ended up walking up some steps at the game when there was a game in like late 80s and seeing Twickenham. So it's a vivid memory I have with my father. And then, 10 years later on, there I am walking out of Twickenham in front of 75,000 people. And I guess as a 20-year-old, you don't know I don't think I had the skills to deal with it. I don't know. I don't think I had, but it was amazing. I remember putting on the English shirt. I remember, I vividly remember warming up. I remember, everything about it. And yeah, it was a bittersweet, and we'll probably move on to, because I pulled that England jersey on and then I got taken off at half time. So my dream debut, something you dream about, you visualize, I'm literally sitting on the subs bench going, wow, what's happened there? I felt like I'd literally just been in some sort of storm. And now you sat on the subs bench going, wow, okay, so now what? And there was so many emotions of going from a massive elation and the
Yeah.
lead up to playing for England to shame, embarrassment, all the emotions that you get through things not going your way. And yeah, it was really hard. I mean, that period after that was really hard to navigate, I think. And I reflect on it quite a lot now. And there was obviously some good people around me that helped. But again, in that time, like late 90s, 97, sports psychologists weren't really around.
No.
That kind of, you go back to the club and it was more of a kind of a Mickey, not a Mickey taking, but it was more of like, one cat wonder. You read anything in the press and it's so, I think that I think I navigated it by just setting myself some smaller goals, and focusing on that, and looking back on it, I now things I use now to help me mentally cope with pressure and coach people. I think I probably used it then, but without even knowing it.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And it's such a big shift, isn't it, from being in the front stage in an amazing stadium to then not having that. How did you cope during that time? Was there things that helped you specifically?
I threw myself into my training. I literally threw myself into trying to be fitter, faster, stronger, and that, and and what I guess the things that I could control. I think probably the area that I didn't have the support or didn't look for the support as well, was the mental side of it, and
Mm,
the damage it was maybe doing to my internal stuff and my how I was talking about myself or how I was feeling about myself. So I was putting up a massive mask, I think, all the time
yeah,
to go out there. And I think as rugby players, we put on masks to go out there to be big and strong and physical, and you can be suffering in silence behind that. You go into a very in that years was quite a very masculine, male dominated kind of alpha environment, and you felt that you had to kind of keep up with that, and almost you would go home and go, oh, the doubts would set in. So I think, look, I set myself some goals. I did surround myself with good people, and I got back and focused on just getting back playing for my club and playing for my club well, and that led to getting back towards the England squad again in 2000, going on England tour in 2000, getting capped again, so getting my second cap. And yeah, and I moved clubs and stuff like that as well. So yeah, I think looking back on it, I do think I think sort of set myself just little goals, little markers to go towards. Because sometimes, and we'll probably lead into that, you know, that sometimes things can seem so massive,
yeah,
like a goal can seem so huge, and sometimes it's too big to actually consume you, and then you back away from it. But actually, if you just take it down and break it up and focus on the components of it, can be really helpful. And I think you can just start to make those little steps.
yeah, for sure. And we've definitely spoken about that on the podcast before and that goal setting of how it can support you in anything in life, whether that be a physical injury that you've had or mental health, it can help push you through. And focusing on that bigger picture can sometimes feel too much, can't it? So helping those little goals is really good.
Yeah, I think so. I think the little goals, but sometimes, sometimes even little goals are are intimidating. I think for people, and I think we are in a, we're programmed to enjoy goals and work towards stuff. But sometimes people are in a space where they're not even able to get to that. So it's almost just get out and walk. I like, what do I want to do in the next hour? What does my next hour look like? What does the rest of the afternoon look like?
Yeah.
So, and then just building little small steps, little chunks. When am I working? When am I recovering? How am I managing my mindset? How am I managing my body? How am I managing my workload, my capacity and stuff? So I think that sometimes we can get overwhelmed by goals as well, because everyone's going, and now with social media, everyone's going, well, what are you doing? Wow, they're doing that. They're doing that's amazing. Yeah, you feel like you're inferior, right? So
Absolutely.
we live in a completely different world now. But I mean, so yeah, I think people just at times just need to take the pressure off themselves as well, and just live in the moment. And if a walk is what you need to do, go and walk. Feel great. If it's a run, go for a run. If it's not, don't. You know.
Yeah, absolutely. And when I was struggling with postnatal depression, it literally was that. It was get out the door for 2 minutes walk. That was all it was. But even that was a huge thing and helped me no end. One of the best walks I did, that one was. And something that we often get asked about, and I just wondered whether you experienced it in your professional career or even now with what you're doing, is imposter syndrome. Because people often say to me when I'm coaching, I don't feel like I should be on that start line. Everyone's better than me around me. Did you ever experience that in your career or have teammates who did? And if so, what advice would you give?
Yeah, I think imposter syndrome is such a natural thing. I think, isn't it? I think our brains are wired, parts of our brains are wired to keep us alive and safe. And that fear and the fear of not being part of a group or being kicked out of a group, I think, isn't it? Like sort of that primitive kind of feeling, and that takes over apart from our kind of more, executive functioning, which is hard to switch that on, that rational thinking.
Yeah.
So I think it's quite normal. And actually, sometimes I've read that actually with that imposter syndrome, people do so that it can actually, you can use that in a real way, because actually those that feel that way are generally so well prepared, because they almost go, well, I'm going to do everything I possibly need. It's almost a superpower, right?
Yeah.
Once you can turn it, because actually that imposter's going, well, actually, so I need to make sure I've got my preparation right. I've got to make sure I'm on the start line with the right kit. I've done my I've done my checklist. Da-da-da. So once you can shift the mindset of it, I think it can be really powerful. So I often try and shift it and change the dynamic of it in terms of
Okay.
actually, yeah, that might be how you feel, but actually, I bet you're really well prepared. I bet you've thought of everything. Yeah, I have, yeah, because I'm worried. Okay, well, now we're just going to turn that worry into excitement and go, look what you've done. Let's just go out there and enjoy it. Let's see how it goes. And I think that taking that pressure off. So I certainly felt it. I felt it more when I retired from rugby and went into coaching, because I like rugby, I kind of knew quite a lot about. I was kind of like, that was something I'd spent a lot of time learning my craft and understanding my trade. But then when you suddenly went into coaching and into working in business, trying to learn about different industries and how they work and how corporate structures work and all the politics that you get within corporate hierarchy, I think that was when I stood in rooms with people and, they're talking all this kind of corporate lingo and I'm going, who am I to like try to coach you guys, right? But then you go, well, actually step back and go, actually, I bring a different dynamic, actually. No one can tell me more about performing on a big stage and failing on a big stage and then coming back from big stage and, training, preparing. So actually, I've got a huge amount of value to add here that they don't have. And once you get over that bit, I think you can help. I think, but I think it's a natural thing, and I just think talking through with people about where it's coming from and helping them go, is it is it a fact or is it fiction? You know, is it a fact or is it feeling? Yeah, are you just feeling it, or is it actually a fact? Is it real true what you're saying to yourself, your inner voice, or is it just a feeling? Okay, it's just a it's not a fact. It's just a feeling. Okay, well, feelings are important. They come along. Okay, but actually, they're important, but we don't have to act on every feeling.
Yeah.
Okay, how am I going to respond with clarity? So, yeah, it's a great place. So, I've answered that a long way, but yes, definitely, I felt it. But I think that actually, it can be a real differentiator. Actually,
Yeah. And I think it is about looking at the fact and fiction. I really like that. It's not necessarily, it's that feeling more, and let's look at the facts. You're prepared, you've got your list, as you said. If you can focus on that part, it can help get you through that imposter syndrome a bit.
yeah. Or when you stood the line going, oh well, I know that person's better and stronger than me. Well, really, is that just a fact? You know that for certain. What's the evidence?
Yeah.
Or is it just a feeling that's coming your way that's trying to divert your attention? And where we know with the mental skills is where your attention goes, your energy follows. So, am I going to shift from there? Where am I putting my attention? And can I put my attention on a lot of things that I can control? Because that imposter's focusing on a lot of things you can't control.
Yeah.
And I think as soon as we can locate the things we can control, which in the moment is talking like this is really easy. We go, oh,
Yeah,
that's
of
obvious,
course.
right? But when you're under pressure and still on the start line,
Mm,
we don't see obvious. We lose
no.
perspective. And
Yeah.
actually be able to locate perspective when we're under pressure is one of the key things.
Yeah.
It's huge.
Yeah.
So I help.
Absolutely.
That's what I spend a lot of time with now is having conversations around that.
Yes, and I wanted to come on to that because you went into coaching after your rugby. What made you choose to go into the coaching world?
Yeah, well, I think look, I've always coached. Like I think I was talking to someone the other day. I think even from the age of 5, I don't think I've ever been in a position where I've not been coached or been involved with coaching and training in some way, shape, or form, either within a team, individually. I've have coaches myself, and so it's a concept I really enjoy. And when I was younger at Bath, I got involved with rugby coaching then. when I was probably coaching at the age of 21, 22. I was coaching the younger age groups. So I really enjoyed that. And then I sort of, as I was going through my rugby career, I was started coaching teams wherever I was, then started doing the qualifications. And then as I came to the end of my career, I was coaching at a National One level. I'd done my level three, and I thought that's what I was going to do. And I decided to go to Gloucester from Northampton, and I was going to do some coaching when I was at Gloucester, but I hurt my neck, had to retire with a neck injury. It's another one of those moments where you think everything's planned out or mapped out for at least another year, and then you're going, well, oh, hold on, someone's thrown a spanner in the works now. I've got to do something different. Fate would have it. I met a great guy that helped me move down from Northampton down towards Essex, and I started coaching at Bishop Stortford, and I sort of became head coach there, but also started working within his technology business as a performance coach. So I was taking the coaching that I'd learned and I was applying it into business, doing one-to-one coaching and team coaching. And then I went on some courses and learned some tools and some stuff, and had some great mentoring, and I started just throwing myself into it. And yeah, that's how I got into it. And then I was marrying up both rugby coaching and business stuff. And I started my own business. And then I focused on, since just around lockdown, I moved away from sport and focused primarily on the business side of it. But that, when I say the business side of it, I work with people one to one, leaders, leadership teams, but I also coach dressage riders in around performing under pressure. And and anyone where there's pressure that comes with their performance, and mindset's a component of it. I'll dive in there and try and help, or helping people become more self-aware about themselves and how they operate and what shows up in a good way, and maybe on the other side of that. I love that. I love those sort of light bulb moments with people. So that's what got me into it. I love the idea of coaching. I love the idea of helping. I've always been involved with it. Um, yeah, it's just a great industry to be in, I think.
Yeah, and it's brilliant that you found something that you are so passionate about and you enjoy so much, because so often hear about people struggling going from a pro career in a sport, whatever it is, and making that transition. How did you find that time when you, as you say, it was cut short by a year with your neck injury? How did you cope with that time? Did you just find something else that you loved and that was okay, or were there tough times that you had to work through?
Really tough. So yeah, literally. So I could give you. So I came out of contract with Northampton in would have been June. Had an operation just before that on my neck, and I didn't have the nest egg that some people would have, where they could just go and take 6 months off. And I started working literally 1st of July in London. So I'd
Wow.
gone from being a professional rugby player for 17 years, having everything laid out, having an identity, wearing a badge, to suddenly moving a young family to Essex, to then commuting to London, to doing all that, and trying to coach the rugby team, and as well as, and I think when you talk about trying to being scared, I was really scared, because I was like, okay, well, I've got to try and I want to turn up at work in London, and not just be the rugby player that's been given a job to work in this organisation by some friend. I want to really show that I can do what I'm doing. But I was in a kind of a learning curve, like this melting pot, trying to
Yeah.
learn. So we talk about imposter syndrome, massive. And then I was going to coach the rugby team, where I wanted to do a good job there and show that I could add value. So I was going between Tuesday, Thursday, Saturdays, Tuesday, Thursday night, Saturday, and all the things that going around coaching rugby, as well as trying to do a full-time job as well. And then trying to be a dad and a husband. And subsequently things happen. I went through a divorce, and I found it really hard to train. I'd gone through a period where I was at Northampton. I was probably the fittest I'd probably ever been in my career, I reckon, pretty much. And suddenly I tried to go to a gym in London, and you couldn't get any kit during your lunch break. I would have everything laid out at Saints. It would be very professional. That's how I was operated. And then I'm watching people on their phones trying to work out, and I'm like, what is this? This is crazy. So then you go, okay, what can I do now? I'll go for a run in my lunch break. Yeah, and then you come back, and there's the corporate world where people just felt like they were looking at you. Well, why aren't you at your desk? You're leaving early, or you need. And I was like, this is just so alien to the life I've had. And I really lost what I guess I really lost that identity. I threw myself into so many things. And then you use things, I was, drinking too much and stuff like that. And I was coming home, and I think that everything took its toll really. And I probably wasn't living, I went from being really healthy to being a little pretty unhealthy, really. I didn't really recognize the person that I was. Um, and that's when, I got into a really great relationship, and I'm remarried now. And I met the charity, and I met Alex, and he changed my life. Without a shadow of a doubt, those two people changed my life. Without a doubt.
And it leads very nicely on to the next section that I want to talk to you about in regards to the charity and Alex. Do you want to just talk through who Alex is and what the charity does?
Yeah. So Alex Gibson, MBE, is the founder of Challenging MND. He was diagnosed with motor neurone disease in 2018. He was an ex-GB decathlete, rugby player, fit human being. He would train harder than anyone that I would know. And I didn't know him back then. So I didn't know him until about 2020. When he asked his diagnosis, he wanted to help other people suffering with motor neuron disease. So he set up a charity to do that. And basically the charity raises money to help people living with motor neuron disease now. So it's things like making memories for families so they can go on holidays, have experiences which they can have lifelong memories, because as the body fades, the mind stays really bright and the memory is there. So it's making memories for family, as well as other more practical things that people might need around the home, and help and stuff like that. So far, Alex has raised, or the charity's raised, over £2.5 million. Alex, from his own endeavours. So he would take on various challenges himself, pushing himself through physical, emotional, mental challenges to raise money. He's things he's done. He's climbed the three peaks in Great Britain, and he has cycled between each of those peaks. Together, we have pedaloed the length of the Thames twice in a four-man pedalo, breaking the Guinness World Record. We've cycled on a tandem the length of the Outer Hebrides in 20 hours. He's climbed the height of Everest in the Cheesecake Building in London. This is as Alex's movement and mobility have decreased. So every step for him was an effort. Every single step. He's taken on 20 challenges now. He's still taking them on. This summer we are canoeing the length of the Great Glens, which is 92 kilometers, in a
Wow.
group of us, and camping alongside the locks. And to put it in perspective, now Alex can't walk and he can't talk, so he is, the illness is progressing, but he still wants to go out there and prove to people that you can do stuff. So he was massively my inspiration when I got introduced to Alex, and he came and spoke at the rugby club I was coaching at Bishop Stortford, and he just left a profound impact on my life, but other people they spoke with. And I just thought, God, this is just such good perspective for me, where I was, my health. And I thought, right, that's it. The next day I cycled to training. Started moving. I started running. And he changed the trajectory of my life, and he gave me a purpose. He gave me purpose. And I always say that, as a rugby player, I was very competitive. A lot of the guys are, right, very competitive,
Yeah.
combative. but I'd lost that edge. I'd lost that bit that for me, I was doing it through rugby in the team, but I'd lost that thing for me.
Yeah.
And Alex gave that back to me. Alex gave that back to me by partnering with him and doing some great things. He allowed me to, I don't know, just awaken that back up again. I always say it's my challenge compass. It's just like, okay, got it back. And yeah, I love him dearly, and yeah, he's I owe him a lot.
Yeah, and I think that's the beauty of charities like this and people like Alex is that you know, you don't have MND and yet he still had such a profound impact on your life, and it is inspiring so many other people as well as supporting MND, which is just incredible. You mentioned some of the events that you've done with Alex, and one of them was that you did the London Marathon pushing Alex in a wheelchair. Was there anything, or has there been anything during those races that you've really taken from Alex that has shaped how you take on events and do things?
Yeah, so I think like when Alex before, Alex now finds it hard to communicate. But I guess before when we were preparing for some of the other events, before London, I think what really struck me was his attention to detail, a real attention to detail. He's a bit of a control freak as well, and which was quite funny. Yeah, preparing for things like the Out Hebrides ride, he'd like everything specific. He was really specific about how he wanted his kit and everything like that. It was really good. But we'd be out on this tandem bike in the mornings, and it was brilliant, and we'd have a good laugh. But it was really, really focused. He'd be looking at his watch and he'd be going, right, we're slower than we should be, or we need to speed up, or he was constantly on the stats and the data. And I really like that. I like that. That really kind of helped me dial in, as well as manage him as well. I think I learned from it is that where we have that bit of trust is that actually he had to trust me that I'm going to get him to the end. And if he wanted to go too hard and push too hard, he wouldn't get to the end and fulfill his goal. So there was a huge trust on him allowing me to say, right, mate, we need to rest now, or you need to rest now, when he was doing some of the other stuff. So I think that relationship where there's that trust to say to him, look, I looked him in the eye and I said, look, mate, we need to back off a little bit. Otherwise you're going to blow up and we're not going to get to the end and you're not going to get the goal you want. And I think that's really hard from someone that just wants to push the
So
whole time.
hard.
That was, if, in that sense, he helped me, I guess, find my voice to be able to say to him, to manage it, that lead that area. He helped me with my leadership skills, I think, in that sense. And I think then there's other things that he's taught me, his ability, and it's in lots of things in life when you think you're having it tough and you think I'm tough and I'm tired and you think, blimey, this guy is, it could be 100 times worse and he's still there trying to push. So I think that level of perspective is really important when you're out there. And I see it, with other people when they're doing things, if Alex can do this, why can't you just go and take a walk? Just go and have a stroll. And he always says, amazing things. And one thing he struck me was, never take your mobility for granted is one of the biggest things that struck me. And I say that to people nearly every day, never take your mobility for granted, because he hasn't got that now, right? He hasn't got that tool, and he'd do anything to be able to do that. So he's taught me lots of things, and especially in those things like the London Marathon. The London Marathon's quite funny, actually, because he originally wanted to do it and he wanted to try and walk the whole thing himself. But obviously London Marathon wouldn't allow him to do it because it would take far too long and the roads have got to open and da 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 da. So we compromised and said, oh, you can walk the start line and then we'll push you and then you can walk up the mall at the end. And he kind of, okay, that's a compromise. And he's going around and he's checking in with him. Are you okay? You enjoy it? Yeah. But at the end, it's almost like he feels like he hasn't really participated because he feels like he's just sat there and he wants to do more. And we're like, oh mate, this is such your mindset is I want to do more, I want to push,
Oh,
I want to push. And this is it. He's just taken the illness, he's just taken it on. He's just really taken the challenge to
yeah.
MND. And I think it's not just about him, it's about what it does for just every body in the world saying, you can do more. Challenge in our life is good. Where's your next challenge coming from? Take it on, be prepared for it. It might be uncomfortable, but it doesn't have to stop you.
Yeah, and that's absolutely the key message and why I've set up this podcast is that even when things get hard, you can get through and you can keep going. And Alex is a shining example of that. And so Marathon de Sable then, as you literally just got back from there, where did that idea come from?
Yeah, I don't know, actually. That's a really good question. I think Alex kind of, I started probably doing more running in the last 2 years, and getting into sort of my running and long running and things like that, and longer events and more endurance events and triathlon and half Ironman and stuff like that. So it was sort of, I started really enjoying the mindset around that, and I think it's something I always thought that it's an event that is. I thought, then what can I do to raise money for the charity that's going to be big? There's something that scares me a little bit. That's going to put a bit of a It's not what everyone does. It's not a normal race. So I looked at what was the biggest thing out there that I thought was achievable, and it ended up being Marathon des Sables. And I thought, okay, that's a pretty iconic race. So I set my goal on that over 12 months ago. And then I started doing some training for it. And obviously I did some stuff. I ran around the Alps and the TMB, and I sort of ran around there over a few days to prepare and got some training in. So that's where the idea came from. It was really, what can I do what's big enough and scary enough for me, but also that would probably raise some awareness of the charity and some money.
Yeah. And so for people who don't know, it's 270 kilometers. Is that right?
It was this year, yeah, 271, I think.
Yeah. Through the Moroccan desert in extreme temperatures. And you sleep out there, eat out there. And how long did it take you?
So it's broken down. So you have 6 stages over 7 days. So 6 stages over 7 days, self-supported. You've got to carry all your food for the whole week. You land in the desert a couple of days before that, so you've got a couple of days to kind of get used to your kit and do the medical checks and the kit checks. You got to have a load of mandatory stuff. So you have to carry a minimum of 2,000 calories a day. You decide how much luxury items you want to have. So it was broken down this year into the 6 stages, 7 days. Stage 1 was 35 kilometers, stage 2, 40, stage 3 was 30. Stage 4 is 100 kilometers, so it's what they call the long stage. So it's the longest long stage they've ever done. Okay, over 2 days. But if you get it early, you get the second day as a rest day. And then stage 5 is a marathon, 42.2, and then the last stage was 23 kilometers. So, and over various terrains. So you've got soft sand, you've got you've got sand dunes, you've got harder tracks, you've got rocky areas, you've got just all different types of terrain to navigate. And you're in a Bedouin tent with 7 other people, and yeah, it's quite brutal.
Right. It's incredibly extreme. And I like the way you talk about your training that, oh, I went and did, some runs around the Alps, and you're making it sound very simple and probably not as hard as it was. But how do you train for an event like that with the heat, with the terrain, with the back-to-back days?
Yeah, so it's a great question. So I think that I break my training down into 4 elements. Um, I suppose when I'm looking at it is the obviously the physical side of it, so the training. So what can I do in that space? So I I I decided that for this event I needed to get a coach or someone that could at least help me prepare and plan for the last 6 months in terms of my volume, because I could easily overtrain. The tendency would be to do too much and not recover enough, or not do the right distances, not enough back-to-back runs. So I employed a guy called Rory Coleman, he's like Mr. MDS. He's now done it 19 times. He's in his mid-60s, legend of a guy.
He's the guy to have
Uh,
as coach.
he was a good guy. So there's not much he couldn't tell you about MDS, what to put in your bag, how to do it. So I had a monthly call with him, and he would then give me my 4-week plan in terms of my running around my schedule. That was brilliant. So that not only ticked the physical side of it, so I knew what I was going to do my running side. Obviously, there's the nutrition and all that stuff and stretching. That was really important. That touched on the structure, which is the other part of the diamond for me, structure and planning. So organization. So my structure and planning around, right, what does the race actually look like?
Yeah.
What are the stages going to be like? How many checkpoints are there going to be? What's my fueling needs to be for that? How am I going to break down? What kit am I going to take? So that was the structural side, the logistics, organization. So I break it down into that, the physical skill set. So the part of that sort of diamond is skill set. Luckily, there wasn't a huge amount of skill set required for running. A little bit using poles, maybe knowing how, if you're going to use a stove, how do you use a stove? How do you prepare your food out in the desert? All that sort of stuff. So maybe a little bit of skills, but blister treatment, how to treat blisters is quite a big one. So that was the third part. And the fourth part is mindset. So how am I going to feel when what's going to come my way that could challenge me from a mindset perspective? So I broke my training down to those 4 blocks, and I'd make sure I'm working all of them, and then look at what can I control in each of the areas, what can't I control. So that's how I took it on, really. And then for the physical side of it, it was great. I think it's the first time I've had a coach for my running. And it really helped me just with my volume, and I could trust him to do the load.
Yeah.
And that was really comforting. So yeah, and so there was a lot of back-to-back runs. I think I ran 5 times a week. I had 2 days where I'd be in the gym doing strength work. The weekends would be back-to-back. At the biggest, I probably did back-to-back. Um, 3 weeks out, I did 2 marathons on each day, Saturday, Sunday, back-to-back marathons on sand up in Norfolk, which is great training. And I prepared by eating the same food I was going to eat when I
Yeah.
was out there, do all the same fueling. So prepare my body as much as I can, because I'm a big believer of the staying. When it comes to things like this, you don't rise to the level of your expectations, you fall to the level of your training or preparation. And I think that it's like how I put the effort in here. So yeah, so that's how I did it. Lots of back-to-back runs, but also trying to do it around work, and as everyone knows, it's a
It's
lot,
hard.
but it is hard. Yeah, so that's how I did it. Listened to a lot of people that had done it before,
Yeah.
and asked how they had done it, how they had approached it, what things to watch out for. Um, so tried to get as much information as I could without trying to spoil the surprise of what it was going to be like. With the heat training, I did heat acclimation, heat chamber, which actually was probably the most disgusting thing I've ever done. Um, so to put into context, you go into a chamber with a treadmill, or there's 2 treadmills, you and another person, and they crank the heat up. So it's about, at one point it was 46 degrees, but it's a really humid heat. So it's nothing like the desert really. It's just very hot, but it was so hot, and I was dripping wet. But they work out then what your sweat rate is, so all that, how much sodium you're losing. So I was trying to be quite scientific in
Yeah.
in what I was doing, how much sodium I needed to put back in my body, which was brilliant, because it made me feel like I was being that professional athlete again, which I'd lost. So the
Yeah.
human being that I used to be, the professional athlete, I was becoming that professional athlete again. And I thought, well, why not? This is amazing. I love it. I get so much energy from that. So embrace that. So, the heat chamber stuff was absolutely disgusting, but it was good because I met other people that were doing MDS. So
Yeah. Yeah.
it's good
And I
stuff.
imagine some of the bits that you learned from Alex as well, with his attention to detail, that helped you no end with that planning for sure. And I just wanted to touch on the mental side of it and preparation for when things get tough, because I imagine things did get tough at points in that race. Were there times where you were thinking, "I can't do this. How do I get through this?" And if so, what got you through? What mental strategies did you use?
Yeah, look, there was a few things which challenged me mentally. First thing is I had when I got into camp, I had some stomach issues, which is not ideal with
No.
about 2 days before you start your race.
Oh no.
So yeah, that was because I couldn't eat any of the I couldn't eat. I couldn't really eat properly. So anything I was eating wasn't really staying in. So that meant that was like, okay, well, you know, there could have been that element of going, poor me, this isn't fair. But I just sort of broke every hour down to what do I need to do in this next hour to help myself? And it might be right, okay, I'm going to leave it to this time, then I'm going to go and see the medics and get something. Because they say don't self medicate. So if you do need medication, they know what you've taken. So I went and saw that on the day before we started, I did go and see the medics and they gave me some stuff. And I thought, okay, right, now just religiously do that. Religiously do what you can do. Uh,
Yeah.
and then I managed to get through the first stage and was taking some stuff as well. And I managed to turn the corner on that. But yeah, I definitely went into the race to start with probably underfueled, which was okay. I felt all right. I didn't feel too bad about that. I actually felt I got stronger then as the race went on when I was able to start eating. So that was probably one thing that to start off with from a mental, that really did shift me mentally. During the long stage, I've broken it down. My strategy, and I think the strategy I think we alluded to before when you spoke to other people as well, is that I just went checkpoint to checkpoint. I didn't worry about like the whole thing. I would go, right, how far have I got to run now? How far have I got? And it might be 7.5 kilometers, right? What does that terrain look like? Because you get a race book, and in the race
Right.
book, got it here. You get this little book.
Well used.
It's well used. So in every stage it has. So that was the long stage there. So it maps it all
Wow.
out. And as you see at the bottom, it's got the elevation profile.
Yeah.
So you can see where you're going to, in between each of the checkpoints, what the elevation is going to be. And you can see what the terrain's going to be because they graded terrain green, blue, yellow, and red, I think. And so you could tell what that sort of terrain was going. So all I focused on was, right, what does this checkpoint, how far is it? What's the terrain? And how, what speed am I like to be able to go? What do I need to fuel? And that just gave me a goal for a small goal. And that's
Yeah.
all I focused on. Then reset at every checkpoint. But there was one on the long stage where I got to checkpoint 6 and I had a start of a blister coming on. And my head was saying, my heart was saying, keep going, keep pushing, you're doing really well. But my head was saying, stop, sort your blister out. Otherwise, this could become really, really bad.
Yeah.
So I stopped and I had to think about what I was doing then. So I managed to sort my blister out. Because my tendency is to want to push and persevere and compete. And I knew that could, because I prepared before I went, knowing that mindset I have could actually not be good for me.
Yeah.
So I went through some scenarios in terms of what would it feel like to be overtaken by someone? What would it feel like to be there? And I had to get rid of that. I had to let that all go, and find ways to let it go. And then got to checkpoint 8, and it was really hot, hottest part of the day. And I could feel myself like really a bit dehydrated. We'd just been over some sand dunes. I was like, right, this is a moment where I've got to I've got to stop now for just 10 minutes, 15 minutes. So I lay down, got some fuel inside me, and just closed my eyes for 10 minutes. And just, I've never really meditated before, but I just closed my eyes and tried to listen to what's going on, listen to my heartbeat and breath work. And that helped me just shift back. When I was at that point, I was going, oh, I've still got 30 odd K left to go, 35K. How are we going to get it in? Yeah, I think that was probably the other moment. But there was never a time where I didn't think I was going to complete it. There was never a time I didn't think I was going to complete it. It was it was those moments where you just have to keep keep checking in with yourself. You'll know this from your experience with endurance. And I think that's a real important thing just in life. It doesn't matter
Yeah.
about endurance sports, because sometimes a day in the office can feel like an ultra marathon. And I think ultra marathons or ultra endurance events are all about just checking in with yourself. How am I right now? What do I need right now? Do I need to slow down? Do I need to speed up? What do I need to eat? What's the terrain? And I think that life's like that. You're going from a meeting. Do I need to take a break in my meeting? Am I back to back in meetings? What's my preparation like for my day? So I think you can learn so much from endurance sports.
Yeah.
in how we can prepare for life to get to the end of stuff, to get through.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
yeah.
It's incredible, and I think it's just, as you say, checking in with your body is something that we forget to do so much, don't we? We're listening to everybody around us and all the noise around us, but actually just stopping for 5 minutes and appreciating where you are and what you're doing and how you're feeling is key, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it is, because our central nervous system is, regulating that is key.
Yeah,
Our capacity and our load and all that. And I think that, we know that, you could be going in like high intensity meetings all day, which is really stressing you out and increasing that sympathetic nervous system, which we need, because
yeah,
we need it's there. It's really important. But if we're not balancing that out, if we're not engaging our parasympathetic nervous system, if we're not deliberately and intentionally doing that, then we end up crashing throughout the day. And we go home, I think, and I knew from my perspective, I'd go home, and then you don't have the energy to put into the things that you really need to put into, which is having a lovely meal with your partner, your husband, wife, kids, whatever it might be. You crash out, and then you start to use things like alcohol and stuff like that to manage that stress. But if you can manage your energy levels through your day in that kind of oscillated way, I think that can really help. And you work with people all the time and think like an athlete. An athlete wouldn't sprint all day. You sprint, recover, sprint, recover, sprint, recover. And it's that method of actually, how can I sprint, recover, sprint, recover, sprint, recover in my day at work? So think like an athlete. And when I'm recovering, I'm really recovering. Because what happens is people sit at their desks and they're not working and they're not recovering. They're just staring at a screen or pushing a mouse
yeah,
around. They're not being deliberate in what they're doing. So you're kind of in that gray area of no man's land. So I was trying to say to you, well, if you're in that, get up, walk away, come back with a plan, as you would with a checkpoint in a race, attack the checkpoint, and then reconsider, where am I now?
yeah. Yeah, there's so much learning that you can take from endurance events and just applying it to your everyday life. But people don't, do they? They keep it as two very separate things, which isn't
Yeah, and it doesn't
always
have to be
helpful.
complicated. It
No.
doesn't have to be complicated. I think everyone goes, "Oh, it's amazing." It doesn't, and I think that's the whole thing. I learned is in corporate world, it's like everyone wants to complicate everything, and I think that it doesn't have to be so complicated. It really doesn't have to be so complicated. The amount of time we have in our day is fixed, but the amount of energy we have is variable. So the key to performance is leveraging your energy levels through your day. And if you can do that, then you're going to get more out of the time when you're putting effort in. So
Yeah.
no, it's a great model, and I think that it's I certainly have learned so much from. But just to go back, I learned so much from my sporting career, the highs and the lows, performing under pressure. I wish that I'd had the tools I know now back then. I think I would have navigated things differently. But then I think if I hadn't have met Alex, there's no way I would have taken on Marathon Assault. There is no way I would be where I am now, with that. So I say to him all the time, I'm thankful for him and the charity.
Absolutely. We've often said on the podcast that it's just that one person who can have such a significant impact on your life and change it. And now you are rolling that out and sharing that information, which is in turn going to be helping other people. So it's that knock-on effect, which is amazing. And I mean, Andy, it's making me want to book onto one of your coaching courses. Everything you're saying, I'm right. I'm making notes. But I just wanted to finish off by asking, what would you say to somebody who's currently facing their own toughest finish line, whether it's mentally, physically, with work life? What would you say to them for a bit of advice?
Yeah, look, it's hard. It's hard, isn't it? Because everything's different. I think for me, it's don't feel you have to do it alone. Don't feel that you have to, because I think that everyone out there, I think, has gone through stuff. Everyone's gone through stuff, and I think the more you talk about it, and I love this, walking with guys and people and going like, actually, when you start sharing stuff, you go, actually, God, yeah, other people are actually in the similar situation, going through similar things as well. So sometimes you can feel like it's just you, that it's really just you. So I think feeling comfortable to share, and have some people around you that you really trust. I think it's really important, and that they can help you just to get moving again. And I think that's it. I think it's just after that, it is, uh, for me, it's not about saying like, oh, going to go, oh no, it's not that bad, because that's the worst thing to say. Actually, yeah, it is a bit crappy at the moment,
Yeah.
right? It's not great. It's a bit shitty. It is, all right. If you got it's not accepting where you are, but going, okay, well, how am I going to move? How am I going to start to move? What can I do? What can I control in this thing to start me moving? What am I going to do? And what's my first little step? What's my first step? Don't think about a massive goal. Just go, what's my first step? Because sometimes you can't control steps 15 to 20, but you can control maybe 1 to 5. So just control 1 to 5. And that might be the next 5 days. It might even be in your day. What's your next hourly? I work with people and I go, right, message me at lunchtime. Tell me what's happened in your meetings? How are you feeling? What's going on? And it's like, okay, great. And then that might spread out to a couple of days. And it's so actually just checking in is really important. But I think the biggest thing is don't, don't, um, don't feel you've got to do it on your own. I think find people that you really trust, surround yourself with good people, is super important.
Yeah, and there's so many communities online now that are available to reach out to. And I mean, I found it in the triathlon world that the triathlon community is so supportive. It can be quite intimidating at times, but on the whole, there's amazing people who will listen and help you through. So it's just having the confidence to reach out to those people, isn't it?
I think it is the confidence, and I think again, it's having that courage to do that, and that is real courage. I think that is real courage to step into the unknown, to step into that, because you're being quite vulnerable there, and I think that takes huge courage, and that's why I think having people around you that can support you, can catch you, can prop you up, can stand alongside you, listen to you, I think it's really vital, real valuable, but yeah, and just do one thing for you as well. Just do one thing for yourself, because a lot of people are doing everything for everyone else. Just do one thing for you.
Lovely words to finish off with there, Andy. And so I want to thank you so much for your time today. If people do want to follow your journey and Alex with MND, what's the best way to do that?
So on the social media, so I'm on social media, Andy Long, Impact 2, then Challenging Andy on Facebook or Instagram, or LinkedIn, anything like that. You find us and you can hear about all the things that we're doing with the charity, and our next sort of set of adventures, I suppose.
Yeah, so you mentioned the row. Is there other ones in the pipeline?
Yeah, there will be some other kind of things coming up. I think the first one is, yeah, the Great Glens 92-kilometer canoe, and then yeah, I think Alex is planning another one over winter time, which would probably be something. There's rumor of a 24-hour walk bike thing going on, so.
Wow.
Uh, So it's been on a bucket list. I think I've always wanted to do like a 24-hour walk bike, but there's rumor that we might try and do something like that and get people. My goal would be to get people like joining on Zoom and having like a worldwide people joining you for an hour, cycle with you,
Yeah.
have the screens up, and then everyone just donates a five or whatever it might be to come and join your cycle. So that would be quite cool, because you could map out around the world in 24 hours. So that's my dream.
Well, you can put somebody in Southampton as that in the UK. I would definitely be up for that, for joining in. So, I wish you all the best with it all, and keep doing what you're doing and raising awareness of MND, but also getting through those toughest finish lines. And just thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, Jen, and thank you for everything you're doing as well. It's really meaningful, and yeah, it makes a huge difference. So thank you for having me on.